Welcome back to the Mastering Video Marketing Podcast. I'm Tony Reale.
And I am Ben Carlson.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Tony.
You know, a couple weeks ago, we talked about building a six-figure video production company.
Yeah.
And we talked about our process of growing to that and all the things that we went through, the challenges that we faced, the workflow changes that we had to go through. But I think one of the important factors that we should probably go over and address is the idea that, you know, you can't, it's highly likely, I mean, some people can, but it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to do it completely on your own.
Right.
And if you're a one-man band that's like, all right, you know, I want to grow my company, I want to get bigger. What does that look like? You know,
Sure.
and so I mentioned it briefly, you know, the transition point that I went through, but I think we could talk a little bit more about that and how our workflow has changed over the years at Creative Edge Productions and the times where we brought additional team members on board and those different aspects.
Yeah.
So I think today that's what we're going to talk. We're going to talk about, you know, basically growing your video production company and determining what are those next steps that you want to take, because you don't want to outpace yourself to the point of like if you have so many expenses, the company's going to suffer. So we're going to talk about that.
And for those of you who don't have a video production company, you say, "Oh, phooey, I don't need this podcast." I think a lot of, you know, what we're going to talk about today is really applicable to just about any business. You know, if you're starting from just a one-man or woman band, you know, in your basement or in your garage, what does that look like? What challenges do you come up with? What resources are available? And how do you know when to start making those changes to grow and add people onto your team?
Because you will hit a point where you can't do it all on your own.
Yeah.
And if you want to grow your business beyond that, then you have to change your infrastructure completely.
Right.
So you have to decide if like your capacity is the limit of the company, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we should probably start, is just to say that like, just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you must do a thing.
Sure.
And, you know, for some people, they don't want to manage the logistics of other people, of other workflows, and they can be happy just kind of focusing on themselves. So for those people, so that you don't hit like a salary cap, one direction that you can do it, and we talked about this previously, is where you continuously improve your portfolio and grow it to the point that, you know, you're doing better work and better work and better work. And eventually you can start to say, all right, you know, I'm going to say I won't work with clients below this amount.
Sure.
And then you just keep upping your rates until either you're happy with where you're at, or you can't really stretch them any further without, you know, basically having to grow to a different level. You know, there is going to be a point where your work, you will be limited by your own capabilities and capacities of your team.
Yeah.
And so, you know, being able to know what that threshold is and then just kind of hover around that and be happy, you know, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And there is a, you know, kind of an adage in business is when you hit your capacity, double your price. And what will inevitably happen, you're going to lose clients. But the great thing is, if you lose half your clients, which you might, because they say, I can't afford, you know, I remember back when you were $200 to do a video session. And well, you know, $400 is still pretty low. But, you know, when you double your rates, you know, now you're starting to work with clients that are at that rate. You're working half as much for the same amount of pay. And great. Now you can work up to your capacity, keep working up to your capacity. And when you hit capacity, double your rates again. And you're gonna follow that pattern of you're gonna see business fall off and you're gonna be able to grow it. But to your point, as you're going after those higher and higher budget clients, your work and your portfolio is gonna reflect higher and higher clients. And that's who it's gonna attract.
And there will be a threshold of like, when you hit certain points, certain clients are gonna expect certain things.
Sure.
And honestly for us, like I've worked on projects for, you know, $500,000 and those types of clients are not honestly ones that I really want to go after, because there's a huge logistical process to that. And there is a threshold for us where we're like, we go right up to this amount, and that's where we still can work with clients that fully trust us, that don't have a giant bureaucracy to deal with, that don't have so many hands in the pot and producers that are, you know, always all have an opinion about something. So we found kind of our threshold of where we want to work at, and then then it's just a matter of, you know, finding those specific types of customers.
Sure.
And in your own marketing, when you're branding yourself, a big part of it is then to create a brand presence that attracts the
Yes.
types of customers that you want.
Yes.
And that's a whole another aspect that we might get to in this video or in a future podcast. But going back to the beginning, where you're, again, in our How to Create a Six-Figure Video Production Company podcast episode, we talked about how, when you focus on your portfolio and you grow that, and even sometimes putting in extra kind of free work to, if you can't land a client that is of the capacity that you want to be at, then maybe put in a little extra work on the client that you have in front of you so that you can grow your portfolio in that level. I know it sounds like we're saying work for free, but that's the best way. It's either that or spec work.
Yeah.
And I would rather get paid something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, okay, what's that next step? So say you're a one-man band and you're doing everything. You're meeting with the clients, you're doing the shoots, you're setting up the cameras and the lights, and then you're doing all the editing and the deliverables.
Whew.
It's a lot of work.
You're busy.
You're a busy
You're
person.
really busy.
Hopefully you're busy.
Yeah.
And within that context, so then what's that next step? What would be the first thing that you would want to offload? For most people, it's post-production.
Yeah.
And the reason that post-production is a great thing to focus on offloading initially is because that's something that you don't have to be in the same location as the person.
Right. Yeah.
If a lot of meetings, a lot of especially on a shoot, if you need extra hands, they physically have to be there. But you can hire an editor from out of state or even out of the country and find somebody that can do some competent work that you trust. And there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah.
So that's usually a great way to completely start, when you can remove one entire workload off of your plate. So then you can start racking up more shoots and then letting that edit go to somebody else. You can potentially improve your turnaround time. And then it's a matter of then incorporating that into your budget, of course.
Sure.
Figuring out, because you get what you pay for.
Yeah,
You're gonna there's some editors that are better than others, and
Yeah.
usually they cost more than others.
Yeah.
But that was one of those early things for me too, is when I started bringing on additional team members to say I can't do everything. Because I also, another aspect of it too is really to focus on what is the thing that you want to do. I think that's even more important question, because maybe you are the editor. Maybe that I love to edit. So what do? Well, then you might need to find somebody that can shoot better than you, or that's that's where you start getting into that partnership, because we start to say, okay, what defines Creative Edge Productions? Is it the way that I shoot? Is it the way that you develop the story? Is it the way that Sean and Quinn edit?
Yeah.
All of those are factors.
Yes. Yep.
So there is an aesthetic style that I have established, and if the client wants that, I kind of need to be there.
Yeah.
And otherwise, if it's a lower budget shoot, we'll send out other shooters.
Yeah.
But if it's a specific commercial production of a certain caliber, the expectation is that I'm probably going to be there.
And we were just talking about this yesterday, where we had a potential project coming up, and it was, hey, you weren't available. Do we want to send me? And this specific customer, we were looking at doing exactly what we're talking about, where maybe we would work for a little bit less because it was a bigger client, and we wanted to get in front of them, show what we're worth. And so the question is, if we're trying to show what we're worth, if we're trying to show the best foot that we have, I know I'm a great photographer. I'm not nearly as good of a DP as you are. And so do we want to send the assistant, or do we want to send the maestro? And that's not to, blow smoke, but I mean, that's really what you have to prioritize. And as you're thinking through, what can I offload? I know a lot of people, it does fall down to post-production, editing, things like that. Or sometimes it's the pre-work. It's the grunt work where it's like, I don't have time to be dealing with these details. I need to be either in the bigger picture, in the creative, and really kind of coming up with these ideas. Let someone else offload on that easier work to do.
Right. And when it comes to that, for the offloading of the pre-production, that, again, because there's a lot of client relations that you have to deal with. There's, the back and forth. There's putting a client at ease, giving them trust. Maybe you're good at that, or maybe there's somebody else. I do enjoy the sales process and working with clients, but I also know that you do a really good job at it, and
Thanks.
that you have a great personality. You make customers feel comfortable and heard and valued, and that I can very comfortably say, you do it.
Sure. I appreciate
It's all in your hands. And I know that our clients are going to be well taken care of. And that lets me just focus on my department that I want to focus on. You know, your job is to interpret the client and realize their goals and to a cohesive story. My job is to take that story and turn that into a visual that works within the target budget.
Right.
And knowing what our lane is and where we need to focus our energies, I think is a vitally important step, because then I'm not stepping on you, you're not stepping on me. You know, we've often said that, like, on set, we kind of co-direct.
Right.
You're there, you're, again, working with the client, with the talent, giving them direction. I'm there directing from the visual side.
Sure.
You know, I know the exact, based upon the goals of the script and everything like that, how to shoot it, how to light it. And I'm just in charge of the visual. Instead of, like, a lot of times a DP will work with the director, and the director will say, this is the look I want.
Yeah.
And the DP realizes that. I'm typically there establishing the look from ground zero.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic works for us.
Sure.
It, you know, it may not work for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people may want to be the producers. I've met a lot of producers over the years that they're just really good at that client relationship.
Sure.
And then they contract out local shooters every time they have a client in a project. And so they'll come to the area, find a shooter, find a crew, and then execute it for the client. And they just are good at client relations.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that can be scary though, because it's this idea that you have to give up control. You have to give up, especially if you started this from the ground up and you're really building, and now you have to let someone else in on the process. And I remember even when I had started here and we were doing just projects, you and I, and then it was like, oh no, we need to bring in someone else. And I had this sense of like, oh no, but this is ours. Like, I just want to hold on to this. And then I watch a Marvel movie, and I watched to the end Easter egg, and you look at how long the list of names is of everything that goes into it, and it's like Marvel or any major blockbuster, any major production really could not function without a bunch of hands bringing it all together, and a bunch of eyes looking it over, and a bunch of minds coming up with it. If one person or two people were like, hey, let's make this incredible Hollywood blockbuster, good luck, it's going to flop. And so that you have to be okay giving up control. You have to be okay giving up the things that you're not as passionate about. Exactly like you said, find out what you want to do and be okay trusting that to someone else. And hopefully build a partnership of someone that you know their work, or even if it's someone that you find on like Fiverr or WeWork, find someone that has very reputable, that you can build a relationship and you can start working one-on-one with, rather than just bouncing around. Because you're going to start building those relationships, and that's the key to trust. Is, you know, that I can get the talent where you need it, and I know you're going to get it lit. You're going to get it lit, and the scene is going to be perfect, and neither of us have to worry about that when we're on set.
Right.
If we both had, or if one of us had to worry about both, it would probably fail.
Right.
In one,
and
in
I
one
often
way or
say,
the
like,
other.
you know, your rate on set is directly reflected on the amount of responsibility that you carry on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between like a gaffer and a DP, for example. You know, my job is to come up with the visual style of it. A gaffer's job is to listen to the DP, and the DP say, you know, I say, or even like a grip, for example. So let's go down the list. Like, if a director should be able to come to a DP and say, this is what we're shooting, and the DP is like, all right, this is the look, the tone, the feel based on the script.
Director and director of photography, for those who.
And so the DP is completely executing the director's vision into the look and the style of everything, and the director just tells them what he wants. A gaffer's job usually works underneath the DP, and the DP would say to a gaffer and say, I need a soft light over there, and I'll need a backlight over here, and then bring in some fill, and and then the gaffer will go to the grip truck and be like, all right, so we'll bring in the 8x8 with a M18, and he'll figure out what the light tools are.
Yeah.
If I'm working with a grip, it'll be like, all right, put an 8x8 grid right there, put an M18 into it, bring over my LED light over here, the 4-bank, put that there. I will literally tell them exactly what light and where to put it, and everything like that. And there's a lot of times where working with a gaffer is really great, because I can just be like, do something, make that happen.
Yeah.
And they'll bring in a light where I need it too, as opposed to me having to explain exactly the right light to put where. And so again, same thing with like producers and, sound and like we do a podcast for a company called Initiative One. And, Sean and I are kind of the main crew members, and we have other team on there. But when we're there, Sean is setting up the live stream, the multicam, the audio using our Rodecaster Pro 2 and our ATEM Extreme Pro, whatever, all the ISO, all the things that they talk about.
PhD.
Yeah.
Did I hear a niner in there?
Yeah, ACE. Anyways, that is, I don't have to worry about it. He's focused on that, and he's also doesn't have to worry about that. He's going to get camera feeds that are balanced and correctly exposed, and audio signal that's clean and all that kind of stuff, because I'm setting all that stuff up.
Right.
And when we're ready to go, we go live. But if I had to monitor or double check everything he did, or vice versa, that would be a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
Versus the grip that we have and camera operator, I do double check. Not that I don't trust him, but I'm responsible for that side of the department, so I need to make sure that everything is working correctly.
Yeah.
And so that's the other side. And so going way back to our earlier point about like when do you bring people on board and how do you bring them on board? A really great way to start with that is subcontractors.
Yeah.
You don't need to jump right into employees. In fact, I typically don't recommend employees as a video production company unless you really are at a point of being really strong and stable. And for years, Creative Edge only had subcontractors because we were very project to project based, and sometimes we get really busy, and then sometimes we'd have a gap in where it was slower.
Yeah.
And especially COVID time, we didn't have a lot of work during that period, so we had to really keep money in house and pay our team and not, be able to add in all those other expenses. Frankly, if we can't stay alive as a company, then we can't even bring in other people to pay them.
Yeah.
So having subcontractors is a really, really important step. Now, when you have subcontractors, there's some important factors that you need to be aware of to be successful and to not have legal problems. One of which is insurance.
Sure.
They need to have their own workers' comp and their own liability.
Yeah.
I cannot stress this enough. They have to carry that on their own.
Yeah.
And if they don't, I'm sorry, we can't work together right now.
So as you are looking for someone to partner with, that is a key. And I will tell you, because those contractors are going to incur that cost, they're going to cost more. But having that is going to end up saving you so much. And
it's not even just saving you. You have to legally have that.
Sure. Yeah.
They can't. Because otherwise, what'll happen? There's a couple things that legally can happen. First of all, the government can look at that and say, well, they're not. They're not. They don't have their own insurance. They're not a subcontractor. They're an employee. And then all of a sudden, you start getting employee taxes.
Sure.
You'll be liable for other things that you have to deal with an employee. There are specific things that have to happen with a subcontractor. You can't just say to a subcontractor, I need you here from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's an employee.
Yeah.
And you should be paying them as an employee. And the government will eventually sniff that out, and you'll get penalized and have problems. A subcontractor has to freely come and go. They have to not be required to wear a uniform. They have to carry their own insurance. There's a lot of specific things that they have to carry in order to be considered a subcontractor. And if they don't have their own insurance and for both liability and workman's comp, first of all, again, if there's a problem on set, they drop a light on somebody's head. Your company is liable, of course, but if they don't, your company's insurance is going to come after their insurance. And if they don't have it, it's lots of problems.
Bad news bears.
Right.
Bad news bears. But by the way, just disclaimer: we are not attorneys or financial advisors or business. This is just talking amongst ourselves. If you do have any questions, seek actual legal counsel. We are not it, and do not claim to be. So just take this for what it's worth. This is just what we found in our experience and things that we've had to work through as we've grown the business.
Right. And so, definitely you need to make sure that all your bases are covered with that. And again, talk to an insurance agent, talk to a financial advisor. Those are very important aspects to have because, you don't want to be caught with your pants down in that regard. because it completely could destroy your company
Yeah.
really, really quickly just by having a random grip show up on set. And I mean, I've had people that, seem competent and they've done bad things.
Yeah.
Things that have, stands that have gotten knocked over because they forgot to put a sandbag on them, equipment that's been damaged. We haven't had a lot of problems over the years, but you need to have your butt covered in all of that.
Yeah.
But so having a subcontractor in for those on-set roles, again, for us, a lot of times we'd subcontract grips or audio techs. Find areas that you are unable to meet the needs yourselves, or even find areas like as my camera equipment packages grew, from my 5D Mark II to my FS700, and then eventually to my Red. Working on a Red takes a lot more setup and tear down. You need ND filters on the front of it. It's manual focus lenses. So having an AC was really handy because that was a lot less prep for me. So whether it's one of our team members that has an AC or a subcontractor, that became a necessary role on set if I was going to be shooting consistently on the Red. Not to say I can't one-man band it, which I have done, but if we're doing a very busy shoot and we're going back and forth, NEC is a really important team. So that's assistant camera. Usually that person preps the camera, will pull focus, all those aspects. And, setting up and tearing down a camera can actually take quite a bit of time on set. And if you're moving, you need to do a lens swap. You need to do a rig configuration, like throwing it on a gimbal or something like that. Having that AC working and prepping that allows you as a DP to be over there, setting up lights, telling people where to put things.
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of like, hey, this is easier for me. Sometimes in order to meet the demands of a schedule, you can't physically do it on your own, because if you have to stop and strip down your camera to then stick it onto a gimbal and then balance the gimbal and then get all ready to go, that could take a half hour or even an hour, depending on if you're running into logistical problems, which we've had, happen. The set is completely shut down while everybody's dicking around waiting for you.
For you.
Yep. So if you can have somebody else working on that while you're doing other stuff, working with the director, scouting out a next location, telling grips have now set up all your lighting and done a great job, and now you walk over to the next location while the AC's prepping the camera, and you say, all right, over here we're going to bring in this light and that thing and everything like that. Go prep the jib, whatever. You come back, we shoot the scene, we move to that next location. Everything's almost completely set up.
Yeah.
That's a good working team, and you're able to then crank them out a lot more, because it's a lot cheaper to add 2, 3, 4 crew members to a day than it is to add a whole nother day of production.
Correct.
Bring back the talent, reserve the location, have your top key members, the DP, the director, all those the most expensive people, and the camera equipment rental and all that kind of stuff. All of that coming back for a second day, that's way more expensive than a few extra crew members.
Yeah. And remember, the idea is that we're trying, this is all about how to scale. And so the goal would be, I'll take a little bit less of that cut to pay for crew, because what that means is I get a whole nother day of production with another client. And you can have, and you might not want to book back to back, but hopefully you're filling up to the point where it is back to back to back. By, if you take a $10,000 project over 2 days, or 2 $8,000 projects, one on each day, you're netting up. And even if you have to pay a couple grand to have some crew and have some editing taken off your plate, so you have more time to do that thing that you've already determined that you love, you're still going to come out ahead. You're still going to end up making more money, and your business is going to be able to grow because of it.
Right. I was just watching a TikTok video from one of the founders of Google, and he was talking about like how AI is changing how startups are being created. And, there doesn't make sense right now to have a 40, 50, 100 person startup anymore when you can use tools that, allow the people, 5 to 10 people to do the work of 50 people.
Yeah.
And, so looking also for efficiencies like that, where not to say, all right, hey, ChatGPT, make me a script for a video. I didn't have to write anything. Yeah, here you go. No, you still have to do due diligence, but like working on, being more thorough, reducing your time of research and development for a project.
Yeah.
It isn't just coming up with a great script. You also have to kind of see what's out there and what is done. And you can use tools like AI or, using platforms like Fiverr and Upwork to find people on there that can do some of that research for you as well.
Upwork? I apologize. I think I said WeWork before. I meant Upwork. Yeah. Fiverr. Okay.
But yeah, like those places, aside from editors, but like they can work with you on potentially on script development, on market research, even like getting a VA, a virtual assistant that can potentially help with your account management. All the emails that you're managing. Like for us, Creative Edge Productions, it has a beginning, middle, and end on our shoots. And it's a pretty, it's like building a house. Like you get one where you're working on the blueprints, another one where you're digging the foundation, another one where you're putting up the framework, and you've got the team of people kind of working through it. And it has beginning, middle, and end. But with Creative Edge Concepts, more of those projects are retainer based and they have an ongoing relationship. And there's still phases within that we work through with people, but it's a lot bigger workload that's spread over a longer period. And with that, there's a lot more to manage. And so for us, we were realizing that what was somewhat sustainable with just you and I managing major project workloads became unsustainable when we had a massive amount of clients for Creative Edge Concepts.
Yeah.
And so we needed somebody, we call the position administrative coordinator.
Yeah.
So basically within our company, they just manage all the workload schedules, and you've done a great job of using tools like Trello and Gantt charts to lay out and map out the time frame of each project. And then that administrative coordinator can just oversee each of those timelines and then work with the person. So I don't have to be, deep. We say it's like when you're scuba diving, you don't need to be constantly going up and checking all the gauges and everything like that.
Diving down, coming back up. How am I? I'm good. Okay, I'll go back down. Yeah.
That would be inefficient and exhausting
And dangerous.
Yeah. So we need somebody just there sitting monitoring the gauges, so we don't have to worry about it. Right. Be like, oh, what's the oxygen levels? What's this? Whenever we can just be like, all right, we're deep into this project. We're focusing on the client's needs, and somebody else is making sure that that email that was supposed to be sent out, that make sure that gets taken care of. A client was going to be followed up with. We're coming up on checking in. We said we were going to talk to that client on Friday. Do we have a proposal ready for that? All of those aspects that it's hard for us to constantly bounce in and out of. It just gets exhausting.
Yeah.
And so those are aspects that you can either hire somebody, or you can use, again, like platforms like Upwork or VAs. Like we know a lot of people that have had successes with VAs.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've considered. Right now, we just have that position part-time. It may grow into a full-time position as we grow. But, looking at all of those possibilities is to find efficiencies, because you will hit that glass ceiling really, really quick. And it could be just one thing that is bottlenecking you. Right. And if you just remove that one thing from your plate, all of a sudden your workload just can double or triple.
Speaking of, this is we're not sponsored by this company, but I used Imagine AI. I've had a backlog of photography that I've been working through, and your wife and you brought me on. You told me about Imagine.ai, Imagine AI, photo editing software, which I don't mind photo editing. It's time consuming. I am guilty of shooting way more than I should. I think when we went to Africa for the week, I ended up with 11,000 photos.
Hard to not click whenever your shot is pretty.
Just gorgeous. So, but how do you edit 11,000 photos? Or, a wedding where you're shooting 2,000 photos. And I know your serious photographers out there are going to be like, well, you should just make your shot better. And it's like, well, screw you. I was capturing the moment. If I wanted a burst and I'm capturing a flower girl twirling, no, I'm not going to be like, wait for it. Oh, I didn't get it. The moment's gone. No, I'm going to shoot a bunch and then get it. Anyway, I put it into Imagine AI. We had a project that we were helping a partner with, so it wasn't even really that we were getting paid. But this editing was just eating at me. I was like, I gotta get this done. 30 minutes in Imagine AI, came back completely overexposed, blown out. It was horrible. I was like, well, this is junk. Went back and tried a different preset. And again, it took me 5 minutes the first time to get it set up, 3 minutes the second time. And within 8 minutes, it went through and edited my photos twice and got me to the second batch with the profile that I used was stunning. Got it to the client that night, and she was over the moon about it. So finding efficiencies like that, it's not that you can't do it. I'm competent in editing. I like editing. There are some people who dread editing.
My
But
wife.
but finding those efficiencies that now by freeing up, I was able to knock out a backlog of several projects. I can go out and shoot again. I can go out and do the thing that I really love, which is shooting, and I can be making money. And I pay it's like $7 a month for unlimited edits. And now I'm have it going right now on a project for doing the cull feature, which it culls all your, so anything that's blurry, slightly out of focus, and it doesn't delete them, but it picks out the top ones for you, edits them. And then now, we talk about AI. Really the foundation of AI is not so much, oh, it's going to do all the work for you. It does the fundamental base work for you, all the grunt work, all the stuff that just is time consuming and tedious. It takes a lot of that off your plate. So now I have, instead of my clay, we use this analogy a lot, instead of building a sculpture out of clay, I have a nice polished piece of granite that I just need to chip away at a few things to make it absolutely incredible and put my own style on it. So I wouldn't just take it and send it over to the client. Some of them are good enough, but I usually like to have showstoppers where it's, that I really take some time. That's going to be so much easier now. And
the other thing about it too is like consistency.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're editing, you might be tired, you might be, you might be in a different mood.
It takes several days or weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And depending on where your home office is, you might be in an area where it's lighter and darker. Your the exposure and the style that you do can change. And using a tool like Imagine AI, it's just consistent. It's not, it doesn't change its mood or whatever like that. So things like that there's efficiencies. We're seeing those efficiencies come across. I wouldn't be surprised if, I like Imagine AI, but I'd be surprised if in a year it isn't just incorporated directly into Lightroom.
And Adobe already has some great presets that you can put over it. And that was my question is it really doing better than the presets? And I would say the answer is yes, especially the cull feature. Because the AI right now in Adobe, I feel like it puts a filter over whatever you have. With Imagine AI, it feels like it's editing every photo I have to a style that I approve.
Speaking of AI tools, another one that I was just mentioning to two of my brothers-in-law, just a few days ago, is Firefly's AI, which is one that we've just started using recently. And but what Firefly's AI is that you can sign up for it, and it'll join your Google Chats. And I don't know if it works out there with other chat platforms, but we use mainly Google Meet. And it'll join as a listener, and it will create a full audio recording and transcript of the entire meeting, which is great in and of itself. But that's not all. It'll take that entire meeting and summarize it into bullet points and a brief summary of exactly what you just talked about.
Right.
And I was telling my brother-in-law that work in financial, and he's like, wait, what? It does what?
Yep.
It does what?
Yep.
Like, send me a link to that now, because like nobody wants to do minutes.
No.
Nobody wants to think about it.
Yeah.
And you're always, maybe some people are listening like, I don't need that. I know, I write my notes or whatever like that. There is stuff that you forget.
Right.
And I mean, we were just having a meeting, that we had used that tool with a few days ago, and we were talking about it, and we remembered the meeting pretty clearly, but there was one point where like, did they say this or that?
Yeah.
And we went back to the transcript, the exact moment where they were talking about it, and we're like, I think they meant that.
Well, because that was it. We all remembered what they said, but did they mean it like this, or was it in the context a little bit different? And that's exactly, it was like, oh no, I misheard that. And even the summary wasn't clear, but having all those tools where it was like, oh no, hearing this in context, we can clearly agree this is what they meant. And that, that's a great one. That is a great one. So that's a pretty cheap and easy one. That's one that Google is working on incorporating.
Well, yeah,
now.
that's the other thing too, is like, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video about Google Workspace AI tools that are coming. That I'm excited about. That can't come early enough. I've already signed up for the beta on it. but they're going to have tools exactly like Firefly built into Google Meet.
Yeah.
But also like email summaries where
Yeah.
you can just be like, give me bullet points of this, or vice versa, where you can take a few topics and it'll spread that out. Now I know you can use ChatGPT for that, but it's right in the email. It just, just making it one extra step cleaner for you to like, if I know there's times where it's late at night and I'm like, I need to get back to a client. And I just need to say this, but like, can you please make it a little bit more professional because I don't have the mood to think about it that way. And then I give it a sentence and it'll be like, and here's the really professional way of saying that.
Right.
Great. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you for not making my tiredness be unprofessional in front of our clients.
Right. Yeah. So, again, it's all about finding those efficiencies because the goal of scaling is to get so busy that you can't take on anymore. Or at least get to your threshold that you're comfortable with. And if that's where you want to stop, and we've talked about this, where it's like, do we want to be a $10 million company? Meh.
Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. And that's okay. There are some production houses that are, they're 7-figure companies, and that's great for them. So we have a figure in mind that we know this is how many days we want to be shooting. This is how many days we want to be home with our families. And we know what we can.
We don't want to travel all the time.
Right.
We will do it occasionally.
Yeah.
So it's making the company work for you and not you work for the company.
Yeah.
Even your own company, which sounds ridiculous for the people that haven't been doing it very long, but you're like, no, there gets to a point where the machine is running so hard that if you don't continue feeding it, it will collapse and you'll have nothing.
Yeah.
And so then you get into this weird place where it's like, I don't work, that company doesn't work for me anymore. I'm just a slave to my own engine that I built.
Yep. And the way around that is finding these efficiencies, finding people that you can trust, bringing on team members or contractors that you trust that you can work with that can help alleviate some of that so that you can really effectively divert your time to where it needs to go and where it's going to make you the most money. All right. On this week's Pop Culture Corner, before the show, we were like, I don't know, is there even really anything to talk about? But I think there's quite a few. There's quite a few things to talk about. You said you had something that you were excited about?
As of the time of recording, there's been the first episode of season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds,
which I've seen advertised everywhere now. Yeah. They are going big on it.
They are currently, you can watch the first season for free on YouTube. So if you haven't checked it out, I think it's a great entry point. There's a few points. I think we talked about this maybe last week. There's a few good entry points for Star Trek if you've never been a fan. Strange New Worlds, it's tonally different than say like Next Generation or some of the other shows, but like it's a great hopping on point. Yeah. It's fun, it's episodic, and it's got really good characters. Captain Pike is definitely a favorite captain of mine already. And season 2, episode 1 was great.
Speaking of Star Trek.
Sorry,
it
isn't here. For those watching the video, you can see my Star Trek Picard season 3. Not travel jacket. What's the word I'm looking for?
Bomber jacket.
It's like away team jacket. I forget what they call it. But anyways,
varsity jacket.
This one I actually have two different manufacturers I was trying out, and I like this one a lot. It's comfortable. It's lightweight. It's the middle of summer right now, so I could be sweating in this thing, but it's not too bad.
For those listening at home, Tony is wearing a black and red leather jacket, complete with Star Trek insignia.
Of course, it's I love it. I love it. It's perfect size. This is a XXX. So it runs a little smaller than what I would normally wear, but found a size that fits me. And
it's pretty snazzy.
It's I thank Terry Metalis for creating jackets that I can wear every day. Like I love Star Trek uniforms, but some of them just don't make sense. You just throw on a jacket.
Nope.
Looks like you're wearing a PJ coat or something like that. And so this one, it's like it looks cool. It
looks like a biker jacket.
Right.
It looks like a motorcycle
if you know, which is my favorite type of Trek stuff to wear.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing it today, but I have a Quarks bar T-shirt, and it just has that logo. And if you don't know, I just think it's a bar T-shirt.
Right.
If you do know, you're like, it's a thing.
Yeah. No, that's exciting.
So Strange New Worlds, starting off pretty good. What do you got?
If you have not seen it, stop whatever you're doing. You can have your boss call me. I will give you the day off. Go watch Jury Duty.
All right.
It is so much fun. It is a master class in acting. It's a master class in improv. It's a master class in storytelling. I absolutely fell in love with it. So for the premise is, if you haven't seen it, James Marsden. He was the other guy in The Notebook. He was in Wolverine, or in some of the X-Men movies.
Yeah, Cyclops.
You would know him
Sonic.
if you see him.
He's the main guy in Sonic the Hedgehog.
You would know him if you see him. Yeah. He's one of the main characters, but the basic premise is that they sign up. They had a casting call for a documentary of people experiencing day in the life of jury duty. And so everyone comes in and they get put in and they get called through for jury duty, and you finally get your jury that's selected. The only catch is it's not a real trial. It is not a real jury. Everyone is an actor except for one guy, and he has no clue. And it's just neat. His name is Ronald, and I want to be best friends with Ronald because he is just the sweetest guy. The crazy stuff that the producers put him through is comedic and fun and lighthearted, and he takes everything like a champ. And so, yeah, I highly recommend it. It's what's neat about it is you have Impractical Jokers, and there's been some other improv, like full improv shows. And I feel like the goal of those is always to see how far they can push the improv before it breaks. Like, how far can we push this universe, this world we created until it breaks? And it's like, our Candid Camera, it's like the outrage. Oh, I'm in a woman's bathroom now. Like, what happened with the elevator talk? This is, they had to keep it real enough that the main guy who doesn't know that he's on a TV show or doesn't know that he's part of this experiment and everyone's actors, they can't make it too far where it's like, all right, what's up? Like, am I on Candid Camera? And there's a couple times where he's like, oh, this would be an amazing movie. He's like, this feels like I'm on a reality show. Like, what is happening? But never to the point where he's like, oh no, okay, I'm really doubting that this is
kind of Truman Show-esque.
Yes. So disclaimer, this is a weird thing about me. I'm still not completely convinced I'm not on the Truman Show. So there's a very main character syndrome, but it's one of those, like, it was that trauma where it's like, and now every time it's like, where it's like a weird random coincidence. I'm like, oh yeah, Truman Show, definitely. So it's an ongoing joke. So if that's ever a trigger for you, you've seen the Truman Show and you're like, I knew it, this is not for you, because that's really what they did to him, and they did it flawlessly, and it's fun and lighthearted, and yeah, it's just, I highly recommend it. Jury Duty.
What's that on?
It's on Prime. It's a free V original, whatever that means, but they have it commercial free on Amazon Prime.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out.
Highly recommend it.
All right. Well, it's been fun.
It's been a blast.
I think we should head out and get some more work done, huh?
Do all the things.
Back to the grind.
That's right.
But remember, we asked for this.
We asked for this. That's right.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned. And if you liked what you saw, feel free, click right down over here, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and stay tuned for more.
You bet.